Verity's journey of self-discovery and healing began at a young age, leading her to overcome chronic illness through holistic practices like yoga, meditation, breathwork, sound therapy, Reiki, and natural therapies. Central to her growth is the heart medicine of Pure Cacao, which continues to guide her path. In 2021, she completed Cacao Facilitators training with Keith Cacao and traveled to Guatemala to learn from Keith Wilson, the chocolate shaman. Verity has since collaborated with facilitators across Europe, leads online meditation circles for the global cacao community, and works as an online event producer for the Keith Cacao ceremonialists worldwide. Guided by a Mayan legend, Verity believes cacao opens heart and restores harmony, and she is in a mission to shape its transformative power as the food for the shift. Hello, Verity. I've been very interested since you introduced me to cacao. So, what's all this hype about pure ceremonial cacao nowadays? Uh, isn't this just a normal chocolate?
Well, thank you for inviting me, first of all, of course. Thank you for inviting me to come along to talk about the true story or the forgotten wisdom
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
cacao. And it was very interesting what you said, just chocolate. That seems to be the way it's seen, no? The evolution of the chocolate processing has taken us to that point. Whereas if we look back, especially at the indigenous myth about cacao, chocolate or cacao, which is its the name of the fruit, was always revered as a medicine. And the indigenous myth from the Americas tells us this. I'd like to share that with you. I don't know if you've heard of this indigenous myth before. And it says that when there's an imbalance between humans and nature, that cacao comes out of the rainforest to reestablish that balance and to open people's hearts. So whereas we can see across history, know that cacao has always had this connection to love and the heart, the evolution of
Mm-hmm.
chocolate and the processing of it has led to the loss of its essence. You know, the indigenous people saw it as a medicine for the heart. And these days it's been relegated to this, unhealthy consumer product. Cacao is a fruit. It was seen as this fruit gifted by the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl to the human race. Theobroma cacao is its scientific name. It was named theobromine by a guy called Carolus Linnaeus. He was a botanist, a Swedish botanist, in 1753. And the interesting thing about the name, the Latin name theobromine, is that it actually means the food of the gods. So we can see the importance that this food has, and that it isn't just chocolate, as you just mentioned.
That's beautiful. And all these indigenous myths and all the connection with I don't know, with our interior. Uh, this was all discovered from by these ancient nations, no?
That's correct. Yeah, like I mentioned before, it was classed as a heart
Yeah.
medicine that nourished us on a physical level, the body, the mind, the emotional level, and the soul on a spiritual level. Cacao is a psychoactive plant. It's not
Mm-hmm.
psychedelic. Okay, so let's just confirm that first. It's also classed as an adaptogen. You can look up that word if you wish, and that's any substance in nature that supports the body cope with stress. Another interesting name, it's classed as an entheogen, another word that you can look up. And an entheogen is any substance in nature that has the possibility to alter our perception, our consciousness, and possibly lead to sort of, a divine experience within. That's actually the definition of an entheogen. Now, when people ask me, well, what is it? What is it in cacao that gives it its power? It isn't just down to one nutrient or one component. It's down to this amazing mixture, this amazing combination of components. On a physical level, cacao is one of the most nutritionally complex foods that you will find in nature. It is the highest source of antioxidants, the highest source of magnesium that you'll find, as well as having extremely high levels of things like zinc, iron, and manganese.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah,
Theobromine, you may have heard of this stimulant. Now, this is the psychoactive stimulant that cacao contains. It's very similar to coffee, to caffeine, but caffeine activates our nervous system. It stimulates us this way. But theobromine stimulates the cardiovascular system. It's an amazing support for cognitive health and for cardiovascular health. It's very similar to aspirin, it relaxes the blood vessels and allows the blood to flow freely. It's an amazing component, really. I mean, it supports our mental health as well. It's also very beneficial for the muscle. It relaxes the muscle at the same time as bringing forth this energized feeling without the crash that you get with coffee, which is, the most important thing to say about theobromine. On an emotional level, cacao contains neurotransmitters. So it gives us phenylethylamine. This is the love chemical. Anandamide, which is the bliss chemical. And at the same time that all these wonderful endorphins are running around our body, cacao also contains what we call inhibitors. So the body's very wise, it contains enzymes that in the end use up all these feel-good chemicals, but cacao actually contains inhibitors that stop the body absorbing these feel-good chemicals. So it allows them to be in the body for a longer period of time. And I know you mentioned earlier about sort of the spiritual side of cacao,
yes.
and this is I suppose, this is where the indigenous wisdom comes in. So let's discuss shamanism, because this is where
Yes, please,
the
please.
work with plants
Exactly,
comes
exactly.
in. Do you know about shamanism? What do you know? Can you tell me anything?
What do I know? Okay, let's say I started with Carlos Castaneda, okay? And that was like a million years ago. And the teachings of the Don Juan, the Mexican shaman who introduced him to peyote and so on. So after that, I was looking around about the North American Indian shamans and then the South American.
Shamanism is the belief of that we are nature, we are part of nature.
Absolutely.
And they believe that working, having gratitude for the nature and working in a way, let's say a symbiotic way with nature, that this is where we gain balance.
Yeah.
These days we tend to dominate everything in nature, whether it's our pets or our gardens or what we're ingesting. Everything is adapted or dominated in some way. There isn't this flow of giving and
Yeah.
receiving. In shamanism, they believe that all nature, all plants have a spirit, they have an energy, a character, they have their own healing properties. And you can choose to work with these spirits through intention, having an intention of working with nature in this symbiotic way, as we mentioned. So when a person decides to work with the spirit of cacao, cacao, its specific healing properties are connected to the
Yeah.
heart. So, cacao, once it's ingested or consumed, it becomes this incredible tool, for mental clarity, physical strength, and also for guiding you to a deeper understanding of a deeper dimension of yourself, the heart, the intuition, our wisdom, as it's always been classed as, over all civilizations, all ancient spiritual traditions. The heart has always been the center of us, of who we are.
Yeah.
So that's where cacao works with the heart. It helps open up our emotional center, our heart chakra, and it guides us to feel what needs to be felt so we can come out the other side. It is said that cacao guides you to the heart so you can feel that true purpose. You can follow that true, authentic calling of the heart.
Yes, because
So,
if you allow
yes.
me, uh, for example, our extraterrestrial friends said many times when they were teaching us everything from medicine, anatomy, and everything. So they said that heart is in reality the home of emotions. So whatever is connected to influence, our connection with heart is in reality we are talking about healing emotions, balancing emotions, and all that. So that's I think that's why the cacao is much more important than the people think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a casual drink or social gathering, drink. How in reality cacao came to the Europe and the other parts of the world.
Yeah, very interesting question. How did cacao even get from the Americas, where obviously the native lands are, well, the native land is actually Central America. They say that natively it grows 20 degrees north and south of the equatorial line. The demand for chocolate has led to cacao plantations popping up all the way across the world, across the equatorial
Mm-hmm.
line. Cacao was the first evidence of cacao use was found 5,300 years ago in Ecuador. So with the Mayo Chinchipe from Ecuador, it's a tribe from Ecuador. From there, the cacao expanded to the Central America, so to the Olmecs, to the Mayans, Toltecs, and Aztecs. And from there, as we well know, with the Spanish conquest, when Christopher Columbus arrived in 1502 to the Americas, that he was first introduced to cacao. Interestingly enough, it wasn't until 16 years later that actually Hernan Cortes, when he invaded Yucatan, they say, and it's written in down in history, that it was him that really noticed the importance that was given to this
Mm-hmm.
medicine, as he watched the tribes transport gold and precious stones. They would often leave, if some fell on the way, they would leave it, they wouldn't recover it. But that wasn't the case with cacao. If a seed was to fall, everybody would stop to recover it. And this is written in history. And this is where it was first noticed. And over time, they noticed the cultural, the dietary, and the spiritual beliefs and uses that cacao had within the indigenous tribes.
Yeah.
So from there, cacao was taken. In 1544, they say cacao was taken to Spain to be prepared in the Monasterio de Piedra. I don't know if you know this
No, I
monastery,
don't know.
the
No.
stone monastery in
Mm-hmm.
Zaragoza. So there it was first introduced to Spain, and then from there in the 16th century, it was shared to Italy and then later to France, where it was seen as a drug. It was used as a drug, the favorite drug of the royalty. And then later in 1657, the first chocolate house opened in London. The first chocolate bar was then created in 1847. And I suppose here is where we really see where chocolate lost its real essence. Cacao lost its true essence and its benefits as well, because through the idea of trying to adapt cacao, the texture, the flavor for the Western palate, at the same time, obviously, its true essence, its true magic was lost along the
Yeah.
way. So
And probably in that times the price was like prohibitive, no? It was like gold.
yeah, I mean, cacao was actually used as currency. It was also used as an aphrodisiac. Montezuma, the last Aztec emperor, was actually known to drink 50 cups a day
Uh-huh.
to keep up with his lady
Ah,
friends.
okay.
It was given to warriors to go into battle and given to women in childbirth. So it had many uses.
Fantastic. For example, now we know that the cacao is grown all over the world. No? The original cacao is from Central America. No? Native Americans, they were using this cacao as a everyday, like not a ritual, but like everyday use, hearing about the cacao ceremony. So that is not coming from them, but it's invented, what's invented here. And can you tell why and how?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's very true. Cacao was always part of celebrations. So it was always part of the weddings, the funerals, and rites of initiations in the ancient practice. It was used as a connection, it was the tool of connecting these people within celebrations. But no actually individual cacao ceremony ever existed. The history of the modern day cacao ceremony was actually brought about by a man called Keith Wilson. Um, Keith was originally an adventurer and geologist. He was an
Yeah.
American, and he sort of left. Yeah, he transitioned, let's say, to meditation and developing his intuition and his intuitive abilities. It was in the early 2000s. And from there, he went to Guatemala, where he started to discover cacao and the old indigenous uses and practice and understanding of this medicine. So from here, very organically, Keith bought a house on Lago Atiglan in San Marcos La Laguna,
Okay.
where he actually established a workshop to be able to hand prepare cacao. And he would serve it to his clients that would come to him for his intuitive
Yeah.
abilities. And he would notice that they were able to process a lot quicker, a lot easier. They were able to come into the heart, a little bit like what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. This is where we process emotion. So from here, this is where really very organically Keith was given the name the chocolate shaman by his clients, and the modern day cacao ceremony grew. And basically from this moment on, in San Marcos at that point in the early 2000s, Keith was the only cacao ceremony. And from there, the cacao movement has grown. And if you go to San Marcos now, there are many, 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 many different cacaos and many cacao
Ah,
ceremonies.
good. Um, and so, how the Verity connected with this? Tell me about that.
Well, I was introduced to cacao. It would have been in the COVID
Yeah.
times. I was very, very lucky to have the opportunity to work alongside Keith's Cacao and other practitioners. And what I mean by
Yeah.
this is Keith actually designed a course, let's say a course to be able to teach people how to work with cacao, how to hold circle, safe space for people that wanted to work through emotional
Okay.
processes. So Keith actually designed a training
Yeah.
course, and he now has 600 practitioners globally around the
Yeah.
world that are basically dedicated to bring his mission of sharing cacao, the native Criollo cacao that is hand prepared and hand toasted by the women of San Marcos La Laguna. And yes, his mission is to bring cacao back to the world, and we as practitioners are there to support him.
Okay.
So Keith actually left his body on January the
Mm-hmm.
14th in
Yeah.
2024. But this story goes
Of
on
course.
and it keeps growing all the time. So yeah, let's see where this takes us as cacao makes its journey around the world, opening people's hearts. The scientists say that the next evolution is heart-based living. So this is where cacao, I believe, is taking us to live in a more heart-based world.
Yes, it's some kind of, just another ingredient of this big change we are we are witnessing now. Because, a world like this cannot exist. Something new have to become, and the old world, no, they this old world belongs to the old people with the old thinking, the old way of life. We who came here to help in this change, we want something different. We want harmony, we want, I don't know, collaboration, we want everything the best and everything the most positive we can we can get from that. So
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I mean, in the world and the model that we're living in, we're so conditioned to be in the head all the
yeah,
time, in this age where we're constantly having to use our
yeah,
logic, to continue life.
exactly.
Um, Cacao brings us back to the heart. The recent science shows us the heart is a brain. It's able to think, feel, memorize independently of the brain. Of course, they're always in contact, but it's the heart that's in charge, they say 90% of the time, sending Morse code to the body, telling the body how I feel. This is the emotional center. This is where we
Yeah,
feel without the influence of the mind, constantly processing through the mind. Through the heart, it's all done, everything is done very softly, through the heart qualities of love and compassion and gratitude. Um, yeah, we've even got to the point where we've forgotten who we are. We are so removed from our nature, our natural selves. And this separation for me is where illness is coming in. When we are so separated from who we are as beings, the only way, yeah, I mean, illness, mental illness, physical illness, spiritual illness. Um, and cacao for me is the answer. Cacao is so gentle and so accessible for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah, yeah. It's just another component of the healing process, no? Because as we know, every single illness starts starts in the highest level of our frequency, where the conflict occurs because we are doing something which is not good for us. So the thing is, then it goes down, 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 and come to the body. And if we put ourselves on a pharmaceutical hands, they will just points and that's more. So the best way is to start to heal the body or the complete personality from the most upper level of frequency we can.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really interesting question because people often say to me, you know, what does ceremonial grade actually mean? What is meant by that term is any cacao that has been treated from seed to cup with the intention of use in ceremony. So the intention of use for spiritual development. Keith's
Okay?
Cacao, which is Keith Wilson, the chocolate shaman I mentioned earlier, he sources the native variety of
Yeah?
cacao. So the original cacao that would have been, drank by the Aztecs, which is a variety known as criollo. I can show you actually. I have a pod that I picked up in the rainforest in Guatemala. So Keith actually works through direct trade directly with the Guatemalan farmers, okay? Which differs obviously to the industrial chocolate making, where they solely, use plantations and slavery and pesticides. Keith is different. Obviously, everything is hand prepared, hand selected, hand toasted, and hand peeled. So let's talk a little bit about what is cacao, because many people are surprised when they see this. And this is a cacao pod. So this is the original chocolate, let's say. And this grows directly on the trunk of the tree. They actually
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
develop from
Yeah,
little
it can be seen.
flowers that
It
are
can be seen. Yeah,
pollinated by
yeah.
by uh, by um, by flies, let's say, by little miniature flies, little midges is the word I was looking for. So when these are harvested, they're beautiful colors. They come in purples and yellows and blues and turquoises. And from there, what happens is the farmers will cut them in half, and inside you'll find seeds, cacao seeds. I have some seeds here as well. I mean, obviously you can see them here prepared, but when the pod is
Okay.
is opened initially, they're white and they're covered in like this honey-like pulp, and from there they're left to ferment, a natural fermentation process. And from there they're left to dry, and then they're hand selected. They are hand toasted and they are hand peeled. And the final result is this. I don't know if you can see this. Just bring it into the camera. Okay. And more or less, apart from one final step, which I'll show you as well, in the Keith's cacao process,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
San
yeah.
Marcos La Laguna, they have a corn mill that's been adapted to be able to grind small batches of cacao into paste, so we're able to drink it as a drink. So the seed is then taken and
Yeah.
ground in this mill, and what is produced is a paste which crumbles and then can be blended into a liquid to make a drink. Difference here, I mean, this is where the Keith's cacao process stops, differing from the industrialization of chocolate, where we see many other processes coming into play. For example, they attempt to adapt the texture and the flavor of cacao to the Western palate. So what they'll do is they'll press the cacao in the chocolate processing to remove
I
the
understand.
chocolate, to remove the cacao butter. If I just show you this again, you'll see all the white, which you don't see in the chocolate bars you'll find in the shops. And this is the cacao butter, which is very, very necessary because the body actually needs this fat to be able to absorb the nutrients. So you can imagine if in the chocolate processing, they do this in the first step, you've already degraded the body's ability to be able to absorb it. It's magic. They do many other things, from heating it and cooling it to be able to produce this crispy chocolate bar that we traditionally see in the shops. But obviously, this again, it even affects the flavors. They have to re-add flavorings and different chemicals to rebalance the cacao. So really, you know, it's very far from its original state once it's been processed into chocolate. So yeah, that is the difference really between just chocolate and pure cacao.
If I would come European ceremonies of cacao, um, how does it, how this ceremony looks?
Thank you for the question. Yes. I mean, a cacao ceremony, people often ask me, what is a cacao ceremony? And a cacao ceremony can be anything, as long as there is
Yeah.
respect to the plant, to cacao, as the shamans would believe. And as long as there's any activity there that really directs the person to be in connection with themselves and with this inner space, this inner silence. So that could be through meditation, through yoga, Tai Chi, creativity, painting, poetry, sound, even, which is the way I have gone. I like to hold space where people are able to pause, are able to even
Hmm.
understand the concept of what it means to be in connection with the heart, with your purpose, to listen from somewhere
Hmm.
else that isn't that logical mind, listen with the heart. So I like to be able to provide that space for
Okay.
people using sound. You
Yeah,
see my
they are
sound bowls
beautiful.
here behind. I use crystal bowls, um,
Hmm.
and yoga
Hmm.
and meditation as well. So yeah, I have many strings to my bow. I love to hold space in nature itself, outside as well. And yeah, the
Okay.
process just keeps evolving.
So, Verity, if someone would want to ask you something or to contact or to participate in any of your events, how can they contact you?
Okay, they can find me at the Chocolate Lady on Instagram.
Perfect. Okay.
That's the best way to contact me. Please feel free to send any questions, anything you want to know. I'm quite
Okay.
welcome to
We'll
uh,
we'll
to answer your
we'll
questions.
add this on the description of the video. Don't worry. So, what to say? It was just an revealing and interesting conversation, and I'm so glad that I had you here. I have to thank you, and I'm just delighted, because I tried cacao and I saw what the what your cacao is compared with what they sell in a shops. So it's nothing. That's just what you get in a shop is not have anything to do with cacao. So let's get conscious and use these things in a proper way. Yeah.
I always think as well that it comes back to
Yes.
people's consciousness of what we are. People have forgotten
Yeah.
the indigenous wisdoms, and they majority of people only relate to the physical world and what they see and what they create. Science tells us that the material, the physical world is 0.0001
Exactly.
percentage of who we are. And it's 99.99 is energy, is the
Mhm.
mystic part we don't understand yet. And cacao brings us
Yes.
back to that remembrance. It really
Hmm.
does help us tap into a deeper wisdom that comes from somewhere that we don't understand. The heart is I think it's the most studied organ in the last 20 years. People are starting to realize, like, over all these of all ancient traditions and spirituality, the heart was the center. It was the lotus. It was the temple. It was they. The yogis themselves, they put so much attention into nourishing this part, believing it was the bridge between the physical and the spiritual world, and this spiritual connection being vital for our well-being,
Yeah,
our mental, physical well-being. Like what you were mentioning earlier, that's where disease starts. Disease
absolutely.
starts with an emotion, with a conflict that you're not able to resolve and process.
I'm very grateful.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Arash. It's been
Bye.
wonderful.